Hello and welcome to the FSF PopCast Live Edition.
Hello, kids and cadets. Welcome to Live at 5, my fellow nerds. So glad to have you guys here today. I've got producer John with me.
Hello.
The slayer of buttums.
Yes, indeed.
Which is appropriate because today we are talking about Marvel's Secret Invasion. This is episode 1 of this continuing series. And we've got some really cool content coming up over the next couple months between Secret Invasion leading into the Ahsoka series. Disney Plus is going to be a hotbed of talking points for the next couple months. And I'm very, very excited about this and what it has to offer us. And I said that it's the appropriate that we talk about the buttums because Maria Hill is played by Colby Smulders, who is also Robin Scherbatsky, and she was the bottom queen.
Oh, so it's a dangerous game to play.
It is a dangerous game. You will lose a kidney, a liver, possibly, half your stomach. But, anyway.
Life happens.
So, so why do we have you guys here today? Hopefully you're here because you are as excited about this as we are. So every week, John and I will be joining you at 5 o'clock. Now, typically over the last 6 months to a year, you guys have been used to us doing a 5 at 5 or a live at 5 where we share our top 5 favorite things about something or some pretty cool list along those lines. And we still may slide a few of those in, but for the next couple weeks we're going to be doing Secret Invasion reviews each and every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You'll be able to join us live, you'll be able to participate and have some fun with us doing this.
Yep. She
says she's here to watch The Cute Nerd. I'm going to assume she's talking about you. The whole matching last names and all. So, only stands the reason, stands the logic.
Yeah, so makes sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. So, with that being said, because this show did come out today, I need you guys to be aware that if you haven't watched the episode yet, this is about to happen. There's going to be a lot of spoilers. We're going to talk in depth about things that happened in the show. So here's your second chance, the second graphic to warn you that spoilers are ahead. And please, if you haven't watched it already, it's okay to leave our show. Go watch the show on Disney. Come back and watch this afterwards and see if you agree with the things that we're talking about. But anyway, that's what we've got going on right now. So first things first, John, what was your first impression of Secret Invasion?
So I actually really enjoyed it because it didn't feel like a superhero movie because it's not a superhero show. It's a spy show.
Oh yeah.
Fury he came onto the scene as the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. You look at Winter Soldier, Captain America Winter Soldier, you look at the Black Widow movie, they feel different than the other movies because they're more espionage themed. Mm-hmm. And this continues it. It starts in Moscow. There are references to the Cold War. It just continues that whole vibe, which I really enjoy because, like you, I remember the end of the Cold War.
That's yours.
Yes, Dr. Bilbo was in it.
Dr. Bilbo. And yes, Fury does look weird without an eye patch. That's what happens when you battle a Flurkin unknowingly.
Yeah, it's almost as bad as trying to give a cat a bath.
Exactly.
But no, I really enjoyed it. I like the feel of it. I like the pacing. It's a little slower, but I enjoy that you get to take in the scene, the shot, and just appreciate it in the moment without having to rush to the next shot in like 3 seconds.
Yeah, I like the feeling I got from this. This is very much movie pacing and their world building and their character building. Even though we know we have some, obviously we know Nick Fury, obviously we know Talos, but there's a lot of things around both of those characters and where they're at and where they're at now, post blip, everything else that's happened, after Thanos and, so it's kind of cool to have that viewpoint of this coming in, knowing that these characters need a little bit more world building, a little more character building to kind of round out some of the edges. And so I like that moving forward. I do like your analyzation there of it being more spy themed, and I think that's really accurate for what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did have one complaint about the beginning of the show though, because when they finally get to the safe house, just a few minutes in, the camera was moving all over the place. I don't know if you noticed that. Tim, hello, Timmy, Timmy. Anyway, yeah. So the camera's moving all over the place, and it felt very jerky, and I thought it was pretty distracting.
Yeah, it was.
So, I mean, that was my only real complaint at the beginning. Other than that, I really enjoyed it. She was on assignment, Kathleen.
She went all over the world. If you go back and you look at that, Kathleen, she did say that she was going all over the world for assignment. It wasn't, she went to Argentina, she went to Tokyo, there's all kinds of places. So Moscow is not out of the question.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of our fair Robin Scherbatsky, let's bring this image back up on the screen and let's talk about the relationship between Fury and Hill. I think that was kind of interesting. Almost distracting as Tim freezing. Yeah, I froze up there for a second. I'm not quite sure what was going on with that, but
yep.
But
yeah, so,
yeah,
I don't know. Kind of the "where have you been? Why did you leave?" sort of feeling. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, pretty much. I thought it was kind of interesting, because when they sat down and they're at the Russian bar, and she says, hey, normally we tell each other truths while we're playing chess.
Yeah.
And because she could tell that Fury's holding something back, and she just straight up accuses Fury, or not really accuses, but really pretty much says, you abandoned Earth, you abandoned me, you left, and this total lack of contact told me that you were no longer interested. And so I thought that was kind of interesting that that she cited not only herself but others who felt that Fury's not ready for the war that was coming.
Right. Well, yeah, and that kind of goes into some of Fury's mental health issues. I think they're getting into, because he had a plan. Like you said, for his midlife crisis, he bought the Avengers.
Oh, I loved that line. I laughed so hard. What did you do for your midlife crisis shopping spree? I got the Avengers.
Exactly. But he had this plan. It was going to protect the world. And then his plan ate itself. And then, they couldn't stop Thanos from snapping everybody away. I mean, when he came back, he knew he had failed. Before he went away, he knew he failed. That's some heavy stuff to deal with.
Yeah, I think before he went away, he knew he was in the process of failing. He was, that ramp was building up to that.
Mm-hmm.
And the second that this was happening, and he's using the one hand to try and use the pager to get a hold of Captain Marvel to let her know that they need help and bring her back. Yeah, I think that's when the realization that he had failed came through, and that the Avengers weren't able to stop, the inevitable.
Right.
Because that's what Thanos told him, I am inevitable. So it's kind of interesting, looking at it from that perspective, because, and I couldn't find a good image for it, but, we see, we see Fury laying on the bed there in Moscow, and he sees this image go through on the screen, and that's what's playing on in his mind. And so he's very much going through going through some PTSD memories, and he's having some flashbacks as to what happened and why, and dealing with the failure. And so, I do think that he did go hide on Saber, and that he had left planet. He went off world to kind of hide himself from everything that was going on, and everything that he was feeling, everything that he was seeing.
Yeah, definitely. Which I can kind of understand, because, I work at a hospital, and the last few years, people did kind of hide away from everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people who did everything they could, but they couldn't save everyone.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe that's what I'm seeing in him, is the same things that I see with other people that I deal with on a daily basis. But
yeah,
I could also be reading too much into it.
So. I thought it interesting, too, that he called it a crisis of faith.
Yeah.
Because any time that we've ever seen Fury, he's always been very headstrong, very, cocksure almost, of who he is, what he is, where he's going. Even in the Avengers movies, going against the council and, informing them of the intelligence level of their decision making. And
I love that.
Yeah, that's a wonderful quotable line. Yeah. But So now, I've never really, he says, maybe call it a crisis of faith. So now it
Mhm.
makes me wonder, okay, so what was his faith in, and where did his crisis?
Right.
So
Hmm.
your wife doesn't believe you that you didn't read into too much into something.
Oh, I read too much into everything.
Yeah, it's part of the joy of being
Married to her,
you
yes,
and married to Kathleen. That's also part of it, I'm sure.
because
So, because Kathleen, hi Kathleen.
she's
So
a
anyway,
delight.
she's wonderful,
Yeah,
absolutely wonderful.
best decision I
We're
ever made.
we're not afraid of her at all. Anyway,
Send help.
so yeah, so there's this whole crisis of faith, and I think we're gonna see that kind of. I'm hoping anyway, especially with the way things end in this episode. I'm kind
Hmm.
of hoping that we're going to see that kind of, you know, expunged out a little more because, spoiler if you haven't got to the end of the show already, um, yeah, it looks like Maria Hill gets killed. She's If she's not dead, she's in an awful lot of pain.
Yeah.
And so the only thing I'm wondering is because now Gravik, uh, you know, the main bad guy, the main villain,
Hmm.
dresses up. He's wearing a Fury shell because he made himself change because he's a Skrull and
Hmm.
he can assume images and bodies, and so Gravik was there as Fury, and he's the one who shot Maria Hill. So that makes me wonder: was that actually Maria Hill, or was it another Skrull? And or
Well,
is it Maria Hill and she's just in a whole lot of pain right now?
scrolls when they die revert to their natural form.
Right, but this one
Genetically.
hadn't done that yet. Normally, you hear the squealing noise of the body going back to.
Right. But if she's not dead, then scroll or not, she wouldn't change back.
Yeah, that's true. That's
She would
true.
still look the same.
So yeah, so I'm kind of curious as to what's going to go on there, because in the post credits, I didn't stick around to see if there was a post credit scene. That's my fault. I assumed that there probably wouldn't be until later on,
Right. Right.
in the series. And this is part of the reason why I was questioning who she was or what she was, because trust nothing, believe no one, everything is a Skrull. She's not wrong.
Everything could be a mimic. Right, Kathleen?
Yeah. So just like the other day, there's a story there, I'm sure. You can tell me later. So anyway, I do kind of find it, one of the other things I kind of found interesting is, and I'll bring this up on the screen here, was the addition of Amelia Clark.
Hmm.
Now, we've seen Amelia Clark obviously in Game of Thrones. She was um, also in, oh goodness, why, Solo as
Hmm.
well. And now she's in the MCU with Secret Invasion, playing Talos's daughter, Gia,
Hmm.
which I thought was kind of interesting because at first I didn't realize who that was. I didn't know who, they didn't say who it was.
Right.
And so in my notes, it just says Amelia Clark, very unsure of her role, who she is. And then, then I have a little line and an arrow down going, okay, so this is Talos's daughter. Okay,
Hmm.
the mom's dead. And, now I'm questioning, with everything that's going on, is she going to come back and fight alongside Talos, or is she going to stay on as what's been perceived as possibly a double agent?
I don't know.
And yes, Amelia Clark is amazing. She's a very good actress.
Hmm.
And so love her as Kira in Star Wars Solo story.
Yes.
So
So, speaking of scrolls and characters,
yeah,
when Guy is meeting with Gravik, there's another scroll there. When they're having their making their planter sleeper agents, I guess. That scroll's name is Kriega. I don't know if you know.
okay, yeah, I saw it on the
Yeah,
thing on the bottom.
yeah. So she's actually in the
Closed
comic.
caption.
Yes,
There it is.
yes. The things you put on when your kid's in the room so you can hear the show with your eyes. Yeah, in the comics, she's actually what's called a super scroll,
Okay.
who can imitate more than one thing at a time, including some superpowers.
Oh, interesting.
So the original Super Skrull could imitate all 4 of the Fantastic Four's abilities at the same time.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
now
I
I'm
did not know
wondering,
that.
yeah. So that just pinged in my head with the, hey, wait a minute. They're bringing in the Fantastic Four eventually, right?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Schubart's clobbering time. Uh, but
Hashtag Schubert's collaborating time.
yes.
That's right.
So maybe this is a hint towards that. I don't know.
Yeah. And just like we talked about this pre-show, and I'll bring this up now, but
Hmm.
I also think it's a hint towards some of the things that we're seeing now are going to be a hint towards, the Marvels movie. And so I don't know if we're going to see Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, or if we're going to see, Captain or Miss Marvel or Rambo, or because Rambo was also, up on Saber with Fury. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of possible tie-ins here to upcoming projects in the MCU.
Right.
And that's one of the things I love about the Marvel universe is that we have all these different tie-ins and all these opportunities that you have things coming from the left, the right, and all these different ways. So
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to find out. It's kind of fun for me that the stories might be based on books that I read years ago, but they're totally different at the same time.
right.
So I have no clue what's going to happen. It's great.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story from everything we're seeing. The Skrulls were promised a planet, someplace to call their own by Nick Fury. That's another area where he has failed, and he's probably feeling the weight of that. And now that the Skrulls are clearly, some of them at least, are attacking humans, and we see that in this episode. They go to a busy city square during some type of festival and set off a couple different bombs, and so so there's some definite resentment there from some level of the Skrulls, who don't understand why Fury hasn't found them a home yet, and why
Right.
Captain Marvel hasn't found them a home yet. And so I'm interested to see what happens along that storyline, because one of the ones that feels that way the most is his name is Gravik, and he's like the main bad guy, from what I can tell so far. But everybody seems to be following him and his lead, and he seems like a really cool, like, calm and collected evil mastermind. He's like, yeah, we're just going to do this. We're going to kill a bunch of people, and it's going to be fine. And let's just go ahead and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of am always interested in bad guys along those lines. I either want him to be calm and collected and just, these are the bad, I'm evil because of, my story is that I'm evil because I'm out for revenge, which is like what I get from Gravik. He's out for revenge against Fury for what he didn't get, for what he didn't receive, and the ways that he feels that he and his people have been slighted.
Right.
Or I want them to just be insane like the Joker in
Right.
DC. I kind of hate the guys who try to play the middle of the road and be a little bit of both. I want one of those two ends of the pendulum, and I think we're going to get the calm, cool, collected, revenge driven with Gravik, and I'm looking forward to see how that character develops and where that leads us to and where that's going.
Yeah. And Marvel seems to do a pretty good job with those. I mean, you look at the Flag Smashers in Falcon and the Winter
Right.
Soldier. Believable villains. You could understand, you could sympathize with them.
Correct.
Baron Zemo, same thing.
Right.
You could see where and that's what makes a good villain is
Mm-hmm.
you don't just hate them. You might hate their methods, but they also make a good point.
Right.
Makes you kind of question your worldview a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious about that. And I like the fact that they talked about when Emilia Clarke welcomed in the new Skrull into the compound, that she called it New Skrullos.
Mm-hmm.
And, this was going to be the Skrull home. She's like, we only have Skrull produce here. I thought it was really interesting that it was pointed out that they're all hiding or around power plants because of the radiation levels, because Skrulls are immune to radiation, therefore also making it harder to track their movements and where they are.
Yeah.
So, and I think it was oh goodness, Dr. Bilbo, who said that, because I'm sorry, he's just going to be Dr. Bilbo from here on out because I friggin' love that. But yeah, I was pretty sure that it was Dr. Bilbo that said that most of the ones that they're camping at, that they're living at, are ones that are off the books because nobody, Russia didn't report them as being, officially a nuclear power plant or something along those lines, or a waste disposal site. And so they're the places that they're hiding, they don't even know they exist. So that makes it even kind of more suspenseful to me now, because okay, so A, Skrulls can look like anybody.
Yep.
B, they don't know where they're hiding. And C, Fury is in a crisis of faith dealing with PTSD.
Yeah.
And so to me, this is just like, whoever's writing the story is back there just like a big old gumbo pot, just like, yep, we're stirring this up. This is going to be good. And so it kind of makes me excited as to what's coming up and why.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting ride. I'm already reading some comments online that, well, it's moving too slow. They should be doing things faster,
Tell the Star Wars fans to go back home, leave Marvel alone.
Go watch episode 9 at 1.25 speed. You'll be fine.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but yeah, and now my brain just keeps going back and thinking about the possibility of seeing some of the Fantastic Four characters, and that would be really cool. I don't think we're going to see them in this series, but I think we'll at least see some suggestions of them.
Right.
And I definitely think we're going to see one or all of the Marvels. So, at least I think we'll see at least two. I think we'll see Rambo at some point, because of whether it's a like a flashback, view or something like that of when Saber or when Fury rather was on Saber,
right,
in orbit, or something along those lines, something leading into the Marvel movie. So
yeah, I thought it was kind of neat too. The what was her name? Soren, before she had died, was growing this Skrull plant in her home, and so the Skrulls have already started growing their own thing. They have produce, they have decorative plants. They're starting low scale, not terraforming, or at least conversion or colonizing of Earth.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we don't know how many there are. We don't know where they are, but they're taking over an inch at a time.
Yeah, they definitely are, and I think that's kind of cool. That was also one of the neat things, like when the guy gets in the car with Amelia Clark's character Gia, is that they're sitting there and she hands him this piece of produce, and he can't believe his eyes. He's trying to figure out where that came from, and so I do think that because was it Talos that said it to Fury, or somebody else said it to Fury, that if the Skrulls are able to start taking over, that humans are going to go extinct, that they'll wipe them out.
Right.
And so if they're already starting to terraform and they're starting to bring in their habitat, their produce, their all their things from their life, it's going to get a little interesting.
Yeah.
Real quick. So.
Yep. The only other thing that I really noticed, because I don't just watch the show, I then make the mistake of going on Reddit when it's working and reading things. And there seems to be a little bit of a kerfluffle about the use of AI making the opening credits.
Okay.
Because it wasn't an actual person doing the art. They used software to make something unnatural looking.
Okay.
And I don't know. On the one hand, it's just another tool, but on the other hand, since when do the robots get to do the cool stuff for us? It's like, shouldn't we be getting the robots to do the boring stuff so we can do the cool stuff? But I don't know. Maybe that hit me a little more than some other people, but
Sarah Connor disapproves of your use of Chat GPT.
Very much so. The first time I get one of those, they have 30 years they've been here.
Yeah. And since Ultron. Ooh.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's a possibility. It's definitely a possibility, because there was some definite changes in Fury during that whole time, so it's entirely a possibility.
Yeah.
So, But yeah, so I think for me, the biggest thing moving forward is I want to see what happens with Gia and her relationship with Talos, and if she stays as a double agent or if where she goes. I want to see what happens with Gravik and how he plots his revenge against Nick Fury and the Avengers. And I'm curious about Maria Hill. Is she alive? Is she dead? What did you do with my poor Shabbatsky?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, she's only credited on IMDb for one episode.
Right.
But IMDb is wrong a lot.
They are so.
Yeah. So what I'm curious about, though, is who Christopher McDonald's going to be playing. He played Shooter McGavin in Happy Gilmore. And allegedly he's supposed to be in the next 5 episodes, so I'm intrigued, you know.
Well, I've seen him in other roles, in other shows and things where he plays something military.
Yeah.
So he can pull that off.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as we are prone, Kathleen and I are prone to say on our interview show on Fridays, IMDb is the Wikipedia of the entertainment world.
Yep.
Even the people we interview agree with that very strongly.
Oh yeah.
So, hey, so every Wednesday, 5:00, you guys can come here. You guys can hear our thoughts. And I think, this is just the introduction show. Excuse me. So next week, frog in my throat. But hopefully next week we're gonna have a little bit more an idea where this show is going, what's going on. And, today is the opening episode. We're just trying to get a grasp of this thing and where it's going and where Fury's been, where where everybody's been, what's going on. And all we know is that it's post-blip. We've got 30 years since the Skrulls were promised, and there's a whole bunch of them that are unhappy. So, and you can't trust anybody. So it's going to be interesting.
It's like real life, but on TV.
Exactly. But with green pointy ears. So, that was not a Spock reference. So anyway, he's not green though. He's got pointy ears.
He's got green blood.
Well, so see, we're getting close.
Yeah, you're learning.
So hey, as a reminder, this upcoming Friday on the FSF PopCast, we have, speaking of Star Trek, we have an interview with Dan Janot, who plays Sam Kirk on Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Here's a teaser of the intro.
Dun, 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 dun. Hey, this is Dan Janot, and you're listening to the FSF PopCast. Dun, 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 dun.
I love the fact that he okay, so when we recorded that with him, Dan did that a cappella. He did not have our music playing in the background, and that's what made that even better. He had listened to enough of our episodes that he knew our intro music, and that was just phenomenal.
That's great.
So yeah, he plays Sam Kirk on Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. We see him in about 5 or 6 episodes of season 1. We're not sure how many episodes of season 2 he's in just yet, because that information has not been shared on the Wikipedia of the entertainment world. So we're looking to see if that makes it to there. But now that's coming out Friday morning. But if you want to, you don't have to wait till Friday. Not even close. You can go to that link right there, which is down in the show notes down below. And for as little as $3 a month, you can join our Patreon. Actually, you can join for as little as $1. But if you want to listen to early access recordings and audio or video, go spend the $3 and check out the FSF PopCast on Patreon. And you guys can check that out there. So otherwise, you can wait till Friday morning like everybody else. But why wait and be like everybody else? Go be cool. Go spend the money. Help us make podcasts. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's a good spot to wrap it up, and we'll call it a day. And we'll see you guys next week, Wednesday. Same time, same place, same channel. Yeah. I don't know. I really didn't bootstrap that one. That was just kind of flying off the... Anyway, goodbye.
Bye.
On behalf of the rest of the hosts of the FSF Podcast, we want to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on a future episode, please contact us by means of Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FSF PopCast, or go to www.fsfpopcast.com and click on the contact link. Thanks again, and hope you enjoyed the episode.